Welcome to this very special episode 50 of Escape the Rat Race Radio. I'm your host, Christian Rodwell, and this is your ticket to escape the 9 to 5. These 10 tips, in my opinion, are so powerful that if you're truly serious about changing your situation as quickly as possible, then you should read this list every morning when you wake up and again before you go to bed. Now, as the big man Tony Robbins says, where focus goes, energy flows. And if you can train your mind to focus on these 10 principles and absorb them into your conscious being, then I'm pretty certain that 12 months from now, you'll be able to look back and visibly see how much you have progressed in terms of both your personal and professional development. Welcome, go-getters, to a very special half-century episode of Escape the Rat Race Radio. And today, for the first time since episode 1, it's just you and me. And I'm going to rewind and reflect on the last 49 episodes and everything that's happened with both Escape the Rat Race and myself since I launched this podcast back in December 2016. Well, I guess a good place to begin is back at episode 1. And in episode 1, I shared with you some of my personal story of what led me to be doing what I am today and deciding to leave behind a very cool and successful job within the dance music industry where I'd worked for around 16 years since I left college when I was 18 years old. And that's kind of where it evolved into my interest in personal development and why I believe that the starting point of your successful escape out of your 9 to 5 begins with knowing yourself. And in my opinion, the very best and fastest way of discovering that is by taking the Wealth Dynamics Entrepreneur Profile Test, which was created by Roger Hamilton, who was a guest on episode 18. And I'll link to both the test and the interview with Roger in the show notes. So in episode 1, I also discussed that in order to truly achieve financial independence for yourself, where you no longer have to trade your time in order to get paid, then you must acquire cash flowing assets. Well, one gentleman who has positively reinforced this in my mind ever since I had the good fortune of meeting him back in 2014 is Kevin Whelan. Now, Kevin is the founder of Wealth Builders and also a former guest on Escape the Rat Race Radio, episode 44. Now, we hopefully all recognise that some of the familiar asset classes that exist, such as investments, stocks and bonds, property, business. But did you realise that there are actually 7 different asset classes that you can focus on to build your wealth? Well, if you didn't, then I highly recommend you go back and check out my conversation with Kevin in episode 44 as soon as you're done with listening to this episode. And again, I'll pop a link in today's show notes to help you navigate to all of these resources which I've been sharing with you today. So when I launched Escape the Rat Race Radio, we had the pleasure of racing up the charts and actually hitting number 2 position in the business category of iTunes in the UK and top 5 in America. We actually went number 1 in careers in the UK. And many people obviously asked, how did I do that? Well, you have to remember that I'm coming from a background of working in the music industry and promoting lots and lots of number 1 artists and very successful superstar DJs. So it was something that I had experience with, and I understand how to build a promotion plan, how to engage lots of different blogs, and also a key to that success of being able to reach those high positions in the charts on the launch was definitely a strategy of having 4 episodes to release at the same time. And I looked at some of the other podcasters that are out there who've been really successful, people like John Lee Dumas from EO Fire, people like Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, and they kind of shared a similar way in that you need to have your cornerstone content. And so I went out and I interviewed Carrie Green from the Female Entrepreneur Association, Brad Burton, who's the number 1 motivational guy in the UK, and Dan Waldschmidt, who helps billion-dollar companies solve complex problems in the US. And between those 3 guests, they had well over 2 million followers across social media. And so leveraging those 3 guests and asking them to share when I launched the podcast, then we had that compound effect. So there was a lot of people seeing the links to the podcast and downloading. And iTunes works, updates every kind of 15 minutes, similar to Amazon. And so as long as you have a high frequency of downloads in a specific period of time, you're going to rise up the charts. And that's pretty much the strategy behind how I achieved that. So I know some of you have been asking, and so there are a few tips if you're looking to launch your own podcast. And another question that I get asked a lot is, how do you get like such big names on your podcasts? And again, it's really not that difficult. You would be amazed of who would be happy to jump on and be a guest on your podcast when you simply ask. And this is a lesson that I really want to share with you. And I think it goes in many different aspects of what you do, is that you should not be afraid to ask, because you never know when the timing might be right. And a little strategy that I use, which again, I'm happy to share with you, is that look at the people that you might want on your show. So they may be very successful business people, entrepreneurs, or just in your area of interest. They may be very busy. They may be traveling the world. They may be releasing their own products and books. And you might think, well, they're never going to have time to speak to me. But think about a win-win. Think about in their life, how could you add value? How could you serve them in some way? And so very often these successful people are creators. So they're launching stuff out there into the market. That's probably how they got famous in the first place. So if you time things right, and if you look at what's coming up in the next 6 months, maybe they are coming to your city and they're looking to sell tickets for an event, or maybe they're releasing a book, then that's a good time to approach them. And if you can show them that by being a guest on your show, you can add a few more people, a few more listeners that might go out and book a ticket or buy that book, then they may very well be open to giving you 30 minutes of time. And it's really just press and publicity for them. So if you can't get to the actual person themselves, then it's so easy now to find out who their management are or their agents, just by going to Twitter, just by doing literally 5 minutes of research on Google. And that's a top tip. And I would encourage you highly, whatever it is, whether you're a blogger or you're looking to build your business and associate with some influencers, just reach out, because what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. So, what are my favourite episodes of Escape the Rat Race Radio? I'm sure you have yours, but it's been a really difficult choice to think, okay, well, how can I single out any particular guests over the others? Because they've all shared amazing insights. But I'm going to do my best for you. And I'm literally on the Escape the Rat Race website right now. And you can find all the podcasts if you go to www.etrr.online/podcast. And I'm just scrolling through now, and it's a really, really tough choice. But I would have to say, in particular, my episode and conversation with Daniel Priestley, which was episode 7. Now, Daniel Priestley is widely recognized as the successful entrepreneur and author of many books such as The Key Person of Influence, oversubscribed, and he was also a guest at Escape the Rat Race meetup event in London not too long ago, simply about 3 months ago. And every time Daniel comes and speaks, he delivers bombs, and he talks about the struggles of an entrepreneur. And I know we talk about this a lot, but you really, really have to be prepared if you are going to jump ship into what you think is a world where you sit around, where money comes in and, you've got all this passive income. Well, it takes a lot of work in order to not have to work. And I love the way that Daniel is really honest about that. Now, on episode 7, Daniel gave some really good wisdom about how to go and start validating your new idea. And he said, simply get a brochure made up, which you can hand to your prospective customer, and just book in a whole bunch of meetings in one day. So this is just like throwing yourself into the fire, where you just arrange back-to-back meetings for a whole day, and you just pitch. You just sell yourself and your idea, your concept, your business to prospective customers. Hand them a brochure. And his tip was that if they take that brochure and they, have a look at it and they put it in their bag, then that's a good sign. Definitely someone to follow up with. But if they just leave it on the table when they leave, then they're definitely not interested. And the key is actually asking them, would you buy this? And if they say yes, then getting them to hand over some money, put a deposit down there and then. That is the sign that you've got something that people want. So if you haven't checked out episode 7 with Daniel Priestley, I would definitely recommend that is one to head over to as well. And I'm scrolling through again, and the next one I come to is episode 12 with Leon Logothetis. Now, Leon, you may recognise from the TV screens because Leon is actually a Brit abroad. He's in Los Angeles, and Leon kindly agreed to come on the show, and he is the star of the Kindness Diaries. And Leon has got an amazing story to share about the journey he took pretty much around the world, living on acts of kindness from people that he met along his journey. And it was really nice to just actually reflect that whilst we do strive for success, that we must not always be thinking about the future, about what we want, and we must be present and grateful for what we have right now, because there's so many people around us who don't have what you and I might have and what we might take for granted. So episode 12 of Leon Logothetis, definitely another one that I'm going to highlight for you to go and check out. So episode 15 and episode 16, we did part 1 and part 2 with the Values Factor author, Dr. John DeMartini. Now, Dr. DeMartini is very, very highly regarded as one of the leaders in the world in human psychology and behavior. He is someone that I hugely respect, and it was a fascinating conversation about understanding what your values are and how having strong values will mean that when people are trying to reinforce what they believe is right onto you, then you know that you can stand strong and just believe that what you're doing is right, not listening to the naysayers, and just being very congruent and really showing up every day. And if you haven't checked out that episode, I'm 100% going to point you back there. And that was followed swiftly by episode 17, which was Roger Hamilton. Now, Roger Hamilton is the founder of the Entrepreneurs Institute. He is the creator of the Wealth Dynamics profile test, which I mentioned earlier on. And if you haven't done the Wealth Dynamics test, it absolutely is essential in your progression as an entrepreneur, because we all have a genius within us. And some of us are more creative, some of us like connecting and building teams, whereas others are more grounded, service and timing led, and others are a little bit more introvert and really excel when it comes to numbers and details, systems and analysis. And when you understand which genius you have more tendency towards, then it really helps you to focus and also helps you to build your entrepreneurial team around you. So in episode 17, Roger and I discussed the entrepreneur movement, and that was fascinating. And I'll let you into a little secret. I was actually out in Lisbon recording that episode, because for those of you that have been in the community for a while, you know that myself and my girlfriend Laura moved out to Lisbon last summer to test the whole remote living lifestyle. It's so aspirational to be able to just travel and work, and it was something that we both wanted to do. And actually we're at a point last year when we realized we did not need to be in London, which is where pretty much I've lived all my life, and that we actually did have that freedom to be able to go and live in Lisbon and just fly back into London to do the monthly meetup events, but actually run the business abroad, because the coaching and all of the online business aspect of Escape the Rat Race could be done from pretty much anywhere. So it was a real test, and until you try something, you don't really know how it's going to work out. And we didn't know exactly how that was going to work out. And I've never really shared this at all with anybody, other than a few people that I've spoken to, but never on a kind of big scale like this. But the reality is that it actually was quite tough to maintain the connection with the Escape the Rat Race community that I'd really worked so hard to build over the last 2 years. I felt a disconnect with the community. I wasn't around, and I think people felt that they just couldn't reach out to me as easily as they could when I was in London. And despite the technology that we have, despite the fact that I most of the time use Zoom and Skype and WhatsApp when I'm communicating with people, just the fact that I was not around meant that people had a kind of different perception, a different feeling, and it actually became quite tough. And it was pretty much that decision that led to us deciding that it was too early on in the business life of Escape the Rat Race to be able to just up and go and live somewhere away from where the core community is, which is definitely here in London. And of course, we do have a global following. We have many, many members all around the world. We've got people from hundreds of cities in our Escape the Rat Race Facebook group, and listeners all around the world who often message, and I appreciate all of you who do drop me messages and say that you're listening, whether it be from Australia, America, Europe, literally all over the place. But that's just a little share, a little insight as to how things went in the remote living lifestyle. And I haven't got a 100% online business. It's not how I set Escape the Rat Race up. It very much is about connection and about community. And I think whilst you can do that online, you cannot beat actually seeing people face to face, eye to eye on a regular basis. And if you're in London, then hopefully you have been along to one of our Escape the Rat Race meetup events or our workshops, and you've seen the vibe that we have at those events and the friendships and the connections that are formed through coming to Escape the Rat Race every month. So a little bit of a diversion there, but one that I really wanted to share with you. So moving on, well, standing out, looking at me from the page here is episode 21, and that is Gary Chappell. Now, Gary Chappell was the former CEO of Nightingale Conant. Now, if you've never heard of Nightingale Conant, then maybe you're below the age of 30, because certainly Nightingale Conant, I would say, were the forefounders of personal development. They were responsible for shining the light on people such as Robert Kiyosaki, Dennis Waitley, Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins. The list literally is endless. It's like the who's who. It's like the Hall of Fame of personal development. And Gary Chappell was there from the very beginning, and he actually rose all the way up to becoming CEO. And it's an amazing story. It was an absolute pleasure of mine to pick Gary's brain and find out what it was like to work with all of those absolutely incredible minds. And that's an episode that is, I would say, at the top of my personal favorites of all of the conversations that I've had. So please do check that one out. I really hope that you'll enjoy that as much as I did. So moving through, we're at episode 25 with Paul Dunn. Now, Paul Dunn, another incredible gentleman, and he's the co-founder of a company called B1G1, which stands for Buy One, Give One. Now, B1G1 helps businesses around the world give back in meaningful ways so that they can create measurable, long-lasting impacts and an even greater sense of purpose in their businesses. Now, Escape the Rat Race association with B1G1 means that the more we are able to provide to our members, the greater the social impact we are having, and that makes us feel good about doing business. And that brings me to episode 27 with the disruptive entrepreneur himself, Mr. Rob Moore. Now, Rob's company, Progressive Property, is where I first began my own property education back in 2014. And since then, Rob has added to his list of best-selling books with the release of Life Leverage and the worldwide bestseller Money. Now, as you would expect from Rob, he always over-delivers when it comes to advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, and this is most definitely another episode that you'll want to revisit if you missed out listening to it the first time around. So moving on through, and I guess we should start to highlight some of our escapees. Now, our escapees are members of the Escape the Rat Race community who it might feel as who are a little more within your reach. People who have left the rat race within the last 12 months, and they've successfully sacked their boss. And in between my interviews with successful entrepreneurs, personal development coaches, and marketing experts, I've been bringing you some of the success stories from these members of the Escape the Rat Race community. And I really enjoy recording these episodes because many of them, I remember when they first started attending our Escape the Rat Race events and chatting with them about what plans they had, and then watching them work so hard on achieving those goals and staying focused until they reached the point when they could kiss goodbye to their 9-to-5s. That leads me on to my gift to you to celebrate this special 50th episode of Escape the Rat Race Radio. So whilst the information and insights provided by all of my guests have shared the stage on Escape the Rat Race Radio since day one have been invaluable, I actually think that the insights shared by my escapees is almost more valuable for you. If you're currently stuck in the rat race and turning up at the office every day, striving for a day when you don't have to trade your time for money any longer, and where you are the boss of you and you've got your money working hard for you. So I've distilled the lessons learned from every single Escapees episode into one supercharged and easy to digest download for you, and onto one single PDF page. These 10 tips, in my opinion, are so powerful that if you're truly serious about changing your situation as quickly as possible, then you should read this list every morning when you wake up and again before you go to bed. Now, as the big man Tony Robbins says, where focus goes, energy flows. And if you can train your mind to focus on these 10 principles and absorb them into your conscious being, then I'm pretty certain that 12 months from now, you'll be able to look back and visibly see how much you have progressed in terms of both your personal and professional development. So you really don't want to miss out on this freebie. So go to www.etrr.online/top 10 tips. That's TOPTENTIPS and download this right now. Okay, so where were we on my favourite episodes? Well, episode 30 with the charismatic and enigmatic Chris Akabusi. So any of the British listening, I'm sure will remember Chris Akabusi because he was such a legend on the racetrack, and he is a former Olympic medal winner, a former world champion runner, and he was absolutely amazing guest, so inspiring, and he really shared a core message that you don't necessarily have to have that end goal, that big clear vision. It doesn't have to be absolutely crystal clear when you begin. You just need to know what the next step is for you to be able to progress. Just every morning, ask yourself, what's the one thing that I need to do today to move myself forwards? So if you need some evidence that it's totally possible to go from being in the rat race, working a 9-to-5 job to becoming a multi-millionaire, then you need to check out episode 38, where I interviewed Simon Coulson, who is the founder of the Internet Business School. And Simon is just a regular guy. He used to work for British Telecom. He shares his story of how things just kind of got to a point where he couldn't take it any longer physically. He just couldn't be doing the daily grind and the travel of going back and forth to an office every day. So he broke away from that and he just kind of switched onto the internet and just got clued up and started making his first few pounds on the internet. And that has now led to him now generating over £20 million through his online businesses. And if you're someone who's interested in making a passive income through the internet, then absolutely episode 38 is where you need to head to straight after you've listened to this. So getting near now to the 49th episode, and it was episode 42 where I interviewed the co-author of a book that sold over 1 million copies now called The One Thing. And my guest on episode 42 was Jay Papasan. Now, Jay is a fantastic guy. He's been hugely successful. And we had a really, really good conversation just around productivity. And the whole ethos of the One Thing book is just about how to get really good at focus. And if there's one thing that is going to hold you back from escaping the rat race, from being successful, from making money, I can tell you this, it is distraction. So many people that I see who are coming along to our meetups, you know, month after month, and then 6 months passes, 12 months passes, 2 years passes, and they're just not really making the progress that they should have been. And they're spinning around in circles. And I say to them, like, what's going on? And they tell me that, you know, they tried something, it didn't work out. So they tried something else and it didn't work out. And, you know, I ask them questions like, how long have you been sticking with this? And they say, well, you know, I did this for a few weeks or a few months. And the thing is, you've really got to stick with something, in my opinion, for at least 12 months to know whether it's going to work for you. Now, I often share this, and it's something I really want you to listen carefully to, is that most of the strategies out there, whether it's property, whether it's trading, whether it's e-commerce, most of the strategies work. Now, it's proven. There's people out there making money. You've heard them. Big guests on Escape the Rat Race Radio. They've shared how they have been successful with all number of different business ideas, business models, and strategies. So they must work, right? The key thing to know is that not every strategy is going to work for you. So it's very easy to get sucked into a very slick marketing or salesperson who's up on stage at one of these big fancy seminars that maybe you've had a free ticket or you've gone there for a weekend and it sounds great and everyone's hyped up. And then, you know, of course, the big deal comes at the end of the weekend and you sign up because you just think, well, hey, you know, this sounds like it can't fail. And this is going to be the ticket out of the 9-to-5 for me. And so you sign up and you're all excited and you do it for, you know, a few months and and you don't see the results. You don't see the figures that we're being branded about on stage. And so you kind of lose heart, and the folder starts collecting dust. And we've heard that saying that self-development can very easily turn into shelf development. And if you look up, and maybe you at home have got those DVD sets and those folders from the weekends with all of your notes, and then you probably have not looked at them again since. So the key is understanding yourself. And that's exactly what I said at the beginning. That's exactly why I recommend that the very fastest way to understand yourself and what your natural path towards success looks like is to take the Wealth Dynamics test. So I'm going to keep nudging you to take the Wealth Dynamics test, because it really is going to point you in the direction of least resistance. So episode 42, Jay Papasan, and the one thing is, what's the one thing that I can do today that by doing this one thing will just make all other things seem unnecessary? And it's having that focus every day, just smashing through, and almost like, what's the big domino that if I hit this domino, all the other ones are just going to be set off? Well, that brings us up to episode 49, which is the last episode that I recorded. And it's kind of fitting that that episode was with one of my personal business mentors, which is John Ketley. Now, John is someone that I met pretty early on into my early stage career as an entrepreneur. I guess you could say it was definitely within the first year after having left my full-time job. I was kind of floundering. I was trying lots and lots of different things. And I'm sure if you've been in that situation of trying to spin many plates and not really sure which plate is the one that's going to work out. But I think that's kind of natural when you are looking for the escape route, is to go out and try a few things. And my mentors have said, hey, it's okay, go out and try a few things. But as you'll find out when you read my book, which I'm also working on, something I'll give you a little bit more information about later on, is that it's so easy to get stuck in what I call that discovery phase. So when your eyes get open to this world of personal development, you know, when you first read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you realize that there is a different world out there other than that one of just showing up for work and getting paid at the end of the month, then you kind of start looking and you attend these seminars that I mentioned there, and you can easily go down this rabbit hole. And unfortunately, a lot of people never get out the other side. And John Ketley is someone who definitely came along at the right time for my sanity, my safety, shall we say, in this rocky road of entrepreneurship. And John has been a mentor of mine ever since, and he is one of our Escape the Rat Race trusted mentors. It was John that nudged me in the early days to actually launch the very first business mentoring program at the start of 2016. And again, I'll share this, and I haven't really shared this publicly before, but I had some real self-belief issues going on. And that first year wasn't easy. So 2015 was not an easy one. I was not generating a lot of income. I thought that I was going to really go all in on property. That was my escape plan when I left my full-time job. I got a mentor. I paid a lot of money to have a mentor, someone that I thought would guide me in the world of property. And it just didn't work out the way that I thought it would. And sometimes that happens. And you have to take the first step. You know, I could have easily stayed in the job and that would have been secure. I would have had that paycheck every month. But I just wasn't feeling it. I knew that inside me something needed to change, and I wasn't quite sure which direction to go. And so property was the direction that I went. And that first year, when it got to Christmas of 2015, and as I said, I've got these plates spinning, I'm trying to do property, and Escape the Rat Race was really starting to grow and build. And we had over 1,000 members that had joined Escape the Rat Race in that first 12 months. But it was at that time simply just a monthly meetup event. I was not monetizing Escape the Rat Race in any shape or form. And I was happy that way. It was about connection. It was about community. It was about meeting people. But I got to Christmas and John said, hey, you know, you've got to make a decision because you've got to get some focus, right? You've got to start focusing on one thing. You cannot continue because all of these things are kind of not really getting anywhere. So what is it that you're going to choose to focus on? And that was such a tough decision for me because like you, I wanted to do lots of different things. And when I really sat down and was honest to myself, I said, hey, I'm not passionate about property enough to kind of stick with it for another 12 months. And I was trying a few other things as well, and they weren't really fully connecting for me. And so I looked at Escape the Rat Race and I said, well, you know what? Like, I've always been really passionate about personal development. And that came all the way back from 2004 when I first had my eyes open to personal development, and that was when I was introduced to Jim Rohn. And I've told that story on episode 1, so I definitely would love to share that with you. So the quickest way is for you to go and check out episode 1 and hear that story of where it all began for me. And so John is someone that has guided me, and I think it's really important to give a shout out to all of the mentors that have helped me over the last 3.5 years. So alongside John Ketley, I'd like to thank as well Roger Hamilton. And I mentioned earlier, Roger was a guest on episode 18. Roger's someone that is, you would say, a bit of a superstar. He's someone that has had immense success and helped thousands of people. He really is leading the entrepreneur movement. He's an extremely intelligent guy, and he's created some wonderful models to help entrepreneurs. And he's someone that I really wanted to align with, and I knew could add some value to what I was doing and what Escape the Rat Race was all about. So Roger is another mentor of mine. Another mentor that's helped me immeasurably since the early days is Kevin Whelan, whom I've already given a nod to earlier on in this episode. And episode 44 was the interview with Kevin, where we talk about those 7 asset classes, and one in particular that's so overlooked and could be one that you are sitting on right now, which you're not even aware could provide the fuel to get you out of the rat race fast. So check out episode 44 with that conversation with Kevin Whelan. And then I'd also like to shout out to Vanish Patel, who's been another mentor of mine since the early days, when actually he was helping me with property and really was fantastic guidance in the early days of me setting up Escape the Rat Race. And more recently, Vanish has stepped back in as one of the Escape the Rat Race trusted mentors, and he's been helping many of our members to learn the skills of raising joint venture finance, which is such an important, crucial skill as an aspiring entrepreneur. And so those guys, absolutely, thank you so much. So I'd also like to thank some of the other key mentors that have been working with our members at Escape the Rat Race and training them in how to start generating additional income streams and using different strategies. So Zahir Anwari is my partner in the Escape the Rat Race Trading Academy. Zahir taught me how to trade back in 2014. And if any of you have ever tried trading before, I would hazard a guess that it may not have worked out quite as well as you would have hoped. And I think that's a really common story. I think there's a lot of education out there about trading, how to make money from the markets and Forex and reading the charts. And I really was fascinated by that for many years. And I studied it, and I went out and went to loads of seminars, and I invested on courses and programs. And I just never ever seemed to have any success with it. I'd make a bit of money and then lose a bit of money, but it just never seemed to really feel as if that was going to really work until I met Zahir Anwari. And Zahir showed me a completely different approach to trading, one which is much more hands-off, end of day, doesn't involve staring at a screen and watching the price go up and down and having a near heart attack as your profit and loss just disappears from in front of you. So Zahir is someone that I absolutely wanted to bring into Escape the Rat Race to teach our members how to trade for profit. And Zahir is someone that has really been there since the early days for me. And if you're interested in trading, then you definitely want to head over to Escape the Rat Race website and find out how you can get involved in the Trading Academy. So alongside the Escape the Rat Race Trading Academy, we have the ETRR Property Academy. And I'd love to thank Rohit Santa for being my partner since 2016 when we launched the Property Academy, and we've had a number of members pass through and picked up their first properties, started generating their first passive income, although at the beginning, I'll be honest, it's not so passive because there's definitely work to be done, but absolutely getting on the path towards success, giving people hope, giving them that experience of running a business, of getting their hands dirty when it comes to the world of property and learning what it takes to become a property entrepreneur and build a property business. So if property is an asset class that you're interested in, then take a look at the Property Academy over at etrr.online. And finally, Michael Veazey, who has more recently joined the Escape the Rat Race community as one of our mentors in the Business Academy, and specifically teaching people how to start an online business, and even more specifically, how to use Amazon to create an online business. And there's been a huge amount of interest in people wanting to generate this passive income from selling products and white labeling products. And if that's something you're interested in, then you must check out one of the workshops that we run regularly in London, or even easier is to check out episode 41 of Escape the Rat Race Radio, where I interviewed Michael and we talk all about the ins and outs of selling on Amazon. Hi, it's Christian Rodwell here, and I'd love to share my top 10 tips to help you escape the rat race. Just head on over to www.etrr.online/top 10 tips and download your special 50th podcast freebie copy right now. I said at the beginning that I would be sharing both the highs and the lows with you. Well, it's easy to share the highs when things are going well. And as we said, social media can paint a rosy picture. But I'm going to tell you that actually the reality is it's been really pretty tough journey to get to where I am today. And believe me, I'm nowhere near where I want to get to. But if I can share one thing with you that I've learned since quitting my job and starting my own business nearly 3.5 years ago now, and that is you must play the long game. Well, those words were in fact echoed by Dan Waldschmidt, who's advisor to billion-dollar businesses and my first ever guest actually on Escape the Rat Race Radio, which was episode 2. Now, I connected with Dan when I was searching Google for people, and I can't even remember why I was searching at the time, but as you do, I came across him and he responded to me personally and we kind of hit it off, and he was so kind to offer his time to help Escape the Rat Race members. And it was this way actually that we, before the podcast, did a live video chat for members. So Dan delivered some real heavy questions to get you thinking seriously about why you want to escape the rat race and just how prepared you are for what is going to be a long road ahead. So when I set up Escape the Rat Race, I titled the meetup Escape the Rat Race Within 12 Months. And at the time, that was a personal challenge to myself, really. But the 12 months really caught people's eye. And I still believe that it is possible. But my experience of having welcomed over 1,000 frustrated employees and aspiring entrepreneurs to our monthly meetups and many more focus workshops over the last 3 years has shown me that whilst it's possible, the reality is that it's going to take most people between 3 to 5 years to go from PAYE to becoming financially independent. But believe me, that time will pass quickly. The key, and I'm speaking personally to you right now, is to start today. Make a decision just like I did when I was in Croatia by myself back in September 2012 when I had my epiphany moment. That moment where I said to myself, enough is enough. I wasn't going to faff about any longer. I was going to commit and keep going until I'd achieved the success that I knew was within me. So this is exactly the decision that every member in the Escape the Rat Race Inner Circle has made. And it's so powerful to be surrounded and connected with a group of like-minded people who have this energy about them that things are happening, despite it not always feeling like that. These people are not going to give up at the first hurdle, and nor will they let one another fail. So I absolutely love working with my Inner Circle members and seeing their progress, and I'm very selective about who I allow in. But if you think you've got that go-getter attitude and you also know that you can't do it all by yourself and you need the support of myself and other trusted Escape the Rat Race mentors, then the Inner Circle peer group might be for you. One thing is for certain, those who have joined the Inner Circle have dramatically increased their chances of reaching their goals faster. And I've no doubt that you'll be hearing their success stories on future Escapees episodes. So just before we move on and start looking at the future of what's to come with Escape the Rat Race, I just want to remind you to head over to www.etrr.online/top 10 tips. And you really don't want to miss out on this freebie. It's absolutely a guide that I wish that I had followed sooner, because it's the wisdom that's been distilled from all of my conversations with very, very successful entrepreneurs, guests on Escape the Rat Race Radio, but also with conversations from our Escape the Rat Race community. understanding what are some of the common things that hold people back and what are some of the keys to unlock the potential within each one of us. These are 10 commandments, which if you follow these every day will be guaranteed to make you stronger and accelerate you out of your 9 to 5 and towards a life with more freedom. So what does the future look like? Well, hopefully at least another 50 episodes of Escape the Rat Race Radio. And some of the other big things that are going on right now, as you would have heard me mention in previous episodes, I've been writing my very first ever book. And it is definitely a bigger task than I thought it was going to be. If you've ever written a book, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. I set off to Portugal earlier this year in February, and I thought, hey, I might be able to knock this out in a week. And it's now almost 6 months later, and I'm still not complete. It's a real journey writing a book, and it takes a lot of effort to make sure that you're coming across in a way that's easy to understand. I definitely want to thank all of the members of Escape the Rat Race in our private Facebook group, especially, who've been giving me really, really wonderful positive feedback on both the title, which is How to Sack Your Boss and Start a Business You Love, and the artwork for the front cover as well. So we're pretty much nearly there. I would say I'm about 90% written. I just took a little bit of time out just to give my brain that bit of clear space so that I can come back and just finish that book off. And we're looking at probably a summer, autumn release for that. So I really, really hope that you'll pick up a copy, whether that's an audio version or a download, Kindle, or even the softback version when that is published. So I'll keep you updated. Do not worry about that. So what else is coming? Well, I'm actually really busy at the moment speaking to a whole bunch of our Escape the Rat Race mentors, plus some additional mentors who we've not worked with before, to put together the upcoming Escape the Rat Race 6-month business accelerator. And this will be part of the Business Academy. And we've run some 12-month mentoring programs in the past. And one of the things that I realized is that when you're doing group mentoring, there's always going to be some people who excel. They're just straight out of the blocks and they're so hungry, they're so driven that it can be almost like they're racing away, and you can get to month 3, 4, 5, and some other people in the group who maybe haven't quite, got clear exactly what it is that they're doing or how they're going to go about it. There can be this gap that creates. And so it's quite difficult over a period of 12 months to kind of keep everybody at the same level. So what I've decided to do, based on research, based on speaking to our members, is to condense it into 6 months and really keep this tight. I'm going to be kicking your ass if you're in this program, because in 6 months, you're going to go from having an idea to very, very rapidly testing the market, validating your idea, getting feedback, getting your first customers, and making money. Within 6 months, we're going to get your value proposition in place. We're going to help you craft your brand. We're going to get the online aspect done. But most importantly, it's about getting validation that you're not the only person in the world who thinks this is a great idea. It's such an easy trap to fall into when you're an early stage entrepreneur. You have a fantastic idea. You plow all of your life savings into creating and developing and building a fancy website. And let me tell you, that is not necessary. The very first step is to go out there and get the market feedback. Asking people, do you like it? Would you buy it? And then asking them, okay, great. If you want one, put down a deposit. So the 6-month business accelerator is going to be supercharged. We're only going to have 12 people on that. So if you would like to learn how to launch a successful business and work with 6 mentors, experts in areas of sales, of lean canvas, which is working out your business plan and your proposition, marketing, and just really validating the whole process before you start investing time and money, then this might be something that is of interest to you. So keep your eyes peeled. Make sure you're signed up to the Escape the Rat Race newsletter, and also you're a member of the private Facebook group. If you're not, definitely head over to etrr.online/Facebook. And I know that I've thrown so many different links at you today, which is why I'm going to say to you, head over, check out the show notes, and work your way through all of the suggestions, the links. It's almost like signposting you in all these different amazing places for you to pick up the resources so that you can learn and really, really push yourself forwards. Okay, so let me take you a little bit behind the scenes of Escape the Rat Race Radio. And if you head over to the website page on Escape the Rat Race website, I've posted a picture of my setup of what I'm recording the podcast on right now. And a lot of people ask me about, how do I record the podcast? Well, it's really very simple. So I'm going to quickly run through the equipment. So I'm using a MacBook Air. So my setup is really, really portable. I pretty much could do it from wherever, as long as I've got internet connection and I haven't got too much background noise. So I've got my MacBook Air. And then for the microphone, I have a Marantz Professional MPM 1000U USB mic. Now, it's a very good quality microphone, but it only costs around £50. So it's not super expensive. And because it's USB, it just plugs straight into my MacBook. I've got a foam windshield cover, which costs £6 on Amazon. And then I also have a mini foldable desktop tripod, which again was £6 on Amazon. I'm recording using GarageBand today, which is the free software which comes installed on the MacBooks. But when I actually started recording these episodes, I was using an online website called Zencastr.com, which is Zencastr.com. And you literally log in and you can send a link to your guests. So if you're doing interviews like I do, I would literally send a link to my guest. They would click it on their computer. It would open up a page in Zencastr on their browser, and then we would be talking in high quality audio across the web. And that was absolutely fantastic. That worked really well. But I stopped using that because around about episode 30 or so, I decided that instead of just doing an audio podcast, and it'd be really nice to capture the video interview of myself and the guests. So since then, I've been using Zoom.us. So Zoom is really similar to Skype. If you've not used it before, it's a really good video conferencing. But the great thing about Zoom is it actually records the interview as well. So it records it in an audio file and a video file as well. So if you've only ever been listening to Escape the Rat Race Radio as a podcast, then you may not have realized that it's all video recorded as well. And you can see all of those recordings either on the Escape the Rat Race video channel on YouTube or on the individual podcast pages on the Escape the Rat Race website. So www.etr.online/podcast will bring up all of the episodes, the last 49 episodes, and of course today. And in the show notes today, I'm going to put the list of all of the kit that I use. So other than the kit, I've got the team. And it's not a big team, and it's an important team. So we start with, of course, the show notes, which need to be created for every episode. Now, between myself and my amazing virtual assistant, Ella, big shout out to you, Ella, we put together the show notes, and it's a kind of, familiar format every week. We listen back to the show, we pull out some of the highlights, what are some of the lessons learned, some of the bullets, and that's how we record the intros and the outros. Now, once I've recorded all of the audio files, I then upload them in Dropbox and I send them to my editor. Now, when I started out episode 1, I was paying pretty ridiculous amounts of money every episode for editing. And I've tried a couple of different people, but I now have found an amazing audio editor who's based here in the UK. And his name is Sam from Rodwell Audio. And he's someone that I highly recommend to you if you're looking for someone to help edit your podcast or any other audio for that matter. Now, we've got the artwork. So my designer, Violetta, she takes credit for designing the Escape the Rat Race Radio logo and the artwork. And in fact, for all of the Escape the Rat Race artwork. So Violetta, thank you. Once we've got the files back from Sam at Rodwell Audio, then I upload them to Libsyn, which is our host for the podcast. So myself and Ella, we pull all the files, we tag them in iTunes, and then they're ready to upload to Libsyn. And once you've done that, Libsyn distributes to iTunes, to Google Play, to Spotify, Stitcher, all those other wonderful podcasting places across the web. So that's pretty much it. And as I said, I'll link to my kit and Sam's website in the show notes so you can take a look there. So that's about it for this episode. I feel like I'm just getting into my flow, and I've really enjoyed reflecting on the last 49 episodes and also the changes that have occurred along the way, both the good and the bad. One thing is for certain, winners never quit and quitters never win. Remember that the reality is very likely that it's going to take between 3 to 5 years of hard work, focus, and times of real uncertainty. In order for you to work on your mindset, get really clear on who you are and why you want to achieve the things that you do. It's that future vision that you must cultivate in your mind so strong that it pulls you forwards every day like a magnet. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to the show today, and I hope that you'll stick with me for the next 50 episodes. I'd love to get connected to you personally and hear about your goals and dreams. And you can email me directly by sending an email to chris@etrr.online and say hello. If you're not already a member of the Escape the Rat Race private Facebook group, then make sure you request access today, because that's where you'll not only find me every day, but also over 1,000 other like-minded individuals who are focused on learning new skills and sharing and supporting one another to get out of the rat race and start living life on their terms. So my gift to you today is what I'm calling my 10 commandments. It's 10 extremely powerful statements that are absolutely critical for you to understand and follow on a daily basis if you're serious about developing your mindset from that of an employee to that of a business owner. To download that powerful 10-step PDF, go to www.etrr.online/top 10 tips, or check the show notes where you can just click on the link and you'll be taken straight there. So if you've enjoyed today's show, then I'd appreciate so much if you could spare 2 minutes to leave me a review on iTunes or whichever podcasting app you use. It really, really helps spread the word about ETRR to the wider world. Okay, I'm off to watch some more football. See ya.